The city never sleeps. Above the ground, London hums with life, red buses sighing at traffic lights, footsteps rushing across pavement slick with rain, the distant wail of sirens fading into the night. Glass towers reflect the sky like mirrors, and thousands of people walk across the same streets every day without ever suspecting what lies beneath them. Because under the noise, under the steel and concrete, under the rhythm of modern life, there is another London, a darker one, an older one. Nearly 2,000 years ago, long before the skyline was pierced by modern architecture, before the Thames was bordered by embankments and bridges of stone, there stood a Roman settlement called Londinium. It was a frontier town then, rough around the edges, restless, filled with soldiers, merchants, and travelers who had come from distant parts of the empire. The air smelled of smoke and damp wood. Streets were lined with timber buildings. Life was uncertain, but ambition was strong. Among those who lived there were men who gathered in secret. They were not politicians or generals, though some may have worn armor by day. They were not priests of the official Roman gods whose statues stood proudly in public temples. These men belonged to something quieter, something hidden. They worshipped Mithras. The cult of Mithras was never meant for everyone. It did not welcome crowds. It did not call out in marketplaces. It operated in shadows. Membership was limited, initiation was secret, and rituals were performed behind closed doors. Only men were allowed to join, often soldiers and merchants, men who lived hard lives and sought brotherhood in a world that could be brutal. In Londinium, they built a temple for him. But this was no grand marble structure open to the sky. It was deliberately concealed, designed to feel like a cave. The temple was narrow and dimly lit. Benches ran along its sides where initiates would sit facing one another. At the far end stood an image of Mithras, forever captured in the act of slaying a secret bull, a scene filled with symbolism that only members truly understood. The act was not about violence, it was about rebirth, about the cycle of life, about cosmic order. The blood of the bull represented renewal, the darkness of the temple represented the universe itself. Candles would have flickered against stone walls, shadows would have danced as chants echoed softly in the confined space. Incense may have curled into the air, mixing with the smell of damp earth. Outside, the Roman world continued as normal. Inside, something far more intimate was unfolding. Loyalty, secrecy, initiation. A new member entering the temple for the first time would not have known what to expect. He would have descended into darkness, leaving behind the familiar world above. His eyes would slowly adjust. He would see faces illuminated by torchlight, solemn and watchful. He would feel the weight of ritual pressing upon him. 7 stages of initiation existed within the cult. Each level represented spiritual progression, each demanded commitment. This was not casual worship, it was transformation. The temple stood quietly for decades, but history does not pause for devotion. In the 3rd century, the Roman Empire began to strain. Political instability spread, external threats increased, religions shifted. Christianity slowly rose from persecution towards dominance. The old mystery cults began to fade. Their secrecy, once a strength, became isolation. And eventually, the Temple of Mithras in Londinium fell silent. The candles were extinguished, the chants ceased, the benches gathered dust, the statue stood alone in darkness. Then came abandonment. Flooding from the nearby river damaged parts of the settlement. Buildings decayed, Londinium itself shrank and changed. The temple, once alive with whispered vows, was buried by time. Earth covered it. Generations passed above it, unaware. Centuries turned into more than a millennium. Medieval London grew, churches rose, plagues came and went, fires consumed and rebuilt the city. Empires expanded and collapsed. Railways carved through the earth. Bombs fell during war. Skyscrapers climbed into the sky. All the while, the temple slept. It was not until 1954 that the past stirred again. Construction workers were preparing foundations for a new building in the city of London. Their tools struck something unusual. Not rubble, not random stone. Careful excavation revealed walls, Roman walls. Archaeologists were called. Slowly, layer by layer, the shape of something remarkable emerged, the remains of a temple. News spread quickly. Crowds gathered at the site, peering down at the ancient stones. Londoners who had hurried across those streets their entire lives suddenly found themselves face to face with the ghost of another era. A hidden sanctuary had been lying beneath their feet all along. The discovery sparked fascination. Artifacts were uncovered, including sculptures and fragments connected to the cult of Mithras. The realization settled in. Beneath modern London had once stood a secret temple dedicated to a mysterious god. But even in rediscovery, the temple's journey was complicated. Urban development pressures meant the ruins were relocated a short distance from their original position. For decades, they stood exposed in a somewhat disconnected state, preserved, yet not fully understood by most who passed by. Then, in the early 21st century, something changed. A new redevelopment project sought not only to build modern offices, but to honor the ancient history beneath them. The temple was carefully returned closer to its original depth and location. It was reconstructed with sensitivity to archaeology and atmosphere. The aim was not to turn it into a spectacle, but to restore its sense of descent, to let visitors experience something of what ancient initiates might have felt. Today, if you walk through the bustling financial district, you might not notice anything unusual at first. Glass buildings tower overhead, professionals stride past with phones pressed to their ears, coffee shops buzz with conversation. But step inside, and you begin to descend. The air grows cooler, light dims, the sound of the city fades behind you. As you move downward, the present begins to loosen its grip. Subtle lighting, careful design, and ambient sound recreate the feeling of entering another realm. And there it is. Stone walls, foundations, the narrow shape of the temple chamber. It is not large, it is not grand, but it feels intimate in a way that grand cathedrals rarely do. You can imagine men sitting along those benches, their faces half hidden in shadow. You can imagine the weight of secrecy, the sense of belonging. Standing there, it becomes clear that history is not just dates and empires, it's people. A soldier far from home, seeking meaning beyond war. A merchant navigating uncertainty, longing for brotherhood. A young initiate stepping into darkness, hoping to emerge transformed. The temple is a reminder that beneath every modern city lies layer upon layer of human longing, faith, fear, hope, devotion. London is often described as ancient, but ancient can feel abstract. It's easy to think of history as distant, disconnected. Yet here, the distance collapses. You stand where they stood, you breathe where they breathed. The Temple of Mithras was never meant to be seen by thousands. It was built for the few. And yet now, centuries later, it has become a bridge between worlds, a quiet testament that even in the busiest city, secrets endure. There is something deeply human about building secret spaces underground. Caves have always been places of transformation, shelter, ritual, storytelling. In descending below the surface, we symbolically leave behind the ordinary. We step closer to mystery. Perhaps that's why the rediscovery of this temple feels so powerful. It's not simply about archaeology, it's about revelation. Modern London represents progress, finance, technology, global connection. But beneath its foundations lies evidence that people long ago grappled with the same questions we do now. Who are we? What gives life meaning? How do we find belonging? The men who worshipped Mithras believed in cosmic struggle, in light emerging from darkness. They performed rituals that bonded them together, giving structure to their fears and hopes. Their world was unstable, uncertain, often violent. In the quiet of the temple, they found order. And now, when visitors descend into that reconstructed space, they too step out of chaos for a moment. Phones are silenced, voices soften, time slows. Above ground, London continues at full speed. Below ground, the temple remains still. It does not shout, it does not demand attention, it simply exists, a fragment of devotion preserved against all odds. Cities are built on memory. Streets change names, buildings rise and fall, but sometimes the earth refuses to forget. The Temple of Mithras survived not because it was powerful, but because it was hidden. Concealment protected it, silence preserved it. And perhaps there's something poetic about that. In a world obsessed with visibility, with broadcasting every moment into the light, one of London's most profound historical treasures survived by remaining unseen for nearly 2,000 years. If you walk across the city today, you might not feel anything unusual, just pavement beneath